Good evening.
Hello, how are you?
Well, thanks. How are you?
Great, wonderful. Good evening, folks. It gives me enormous pleasure to um, have Christina Hagen as my guest this evening on our wine and wildlife conversations. Um, for those of you who haven't joined us before, and I see a few names that I don't actually recognize. So Painted Wolf Wines is endeavors to be South Africa's leading conservation-focused wine company, and part of what we do is we host regular conversations with conservationists. We started off really sort of as being African wild dog focused, but you soon run out of African wild dog conservationists to talk to. There's only probably about six of them in the whole of South Africa, and also, I mean, we have although African wild dogs is the important focus of what we do. Yeah, we're interested in promoting and helping with the conservation of all of our wonderful flora and fauna in South Africa and in Southern Africa. Um, so I think this will be the first of several talks that we have with people from Birdlife. And yeah, there's lots of really wonderful and lots of interesting projects that Birdlife are involved with. And yeah, without sort of further ado, I'll turn you over to Christina. Christina, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. Thanks for having me on, and good evening to all the viewers. Yeah, so I work for BirdLife South Africa. I'm the Pamela Isdell Fellow of Penguin Conservation. I've been working at BirdLife for the last 15 years. I was very lucky to get a job basically straight after I finished my conservation biology master's degree. So I did that at UCT, and I was studying Cape Gannets, which are also an endemic seabird found only in South Africa and Namibia, like the African penguin. Um, and so that kind of gave me the background that I needed to come into BirdLife and get this job working on penguins, which I never really kind of thought I would end up working on. But the opportunity presented itself and I jumped at it, and I haven't really looked back. I've just kind of fallen in love with the little black and white birds.
Well, they are rather beautiful, let's face it, and
They are.
intriguing. So you've got an extremely refined and rather posh accent. Where are you from?
Um, so I it's very hard to answer that question because I've moved around a lot. Before I was 16, I'd lived on three continents. Um, so I was actually born in Brazil, but my father is British and my mother was Dutch. So I have a British passport, but I've never lived there and never lived in the UK. Um, and then we lived in Joburg for a bit, and then in Venezuela, and then I spent most of my teenage years in Canada on the West Coast, and then we moved to Cape Town when I was 16, and I've been here ever since.
I mean, it sounds to me as though you were subjected to bird porn when you were a young child. I think Brazil and Venezuela particularly have lots of really rather interesting and charismatic birds.
Yes, well, I wish I could go back and talk some sense into my younger self because I was always interested in, I mean, I knew from a very young age I wanted to be a conservationist, but I wasn't a birder
Mm.
until about 5 years ago,
Right.
6 years ago. So I really kicked myself that
Well,
I
birding
lived in.
is tricky. I mean, I have to say that I do bird almost every day,
Uh,
and I have to I scratch my head so many times, and
yeah, I love playing Birdle as well. And I my one of my claims to fame is that I helped put together some of the data behind
oh, fabulous!
Birdle,
Oh,
and I was
wow!
involved in the initial discussions around how the game would work. I mean, a very, very, very small role, but
I, I Yeah, I bet you
That's
set all the tricky questions that I can't get right. All the difficult birds.
no, that would be some of my other more birding savvy colleagues.
More tricky colleagues.
Yeah, yeah.
Great. Lovely. So, why African penguins?
Um, well, so African penguins are, as I mentioned, they are found only in South Africa and Namibia. So they're very special birds. They're what we called near endemics. So they're only found here. Um, and they are really important parts of the ecosystem. So they are indicators of the health of the ocean, and they also play a role in kind of facilitating the movement of fish from if they're deep down, because the penguins can dive quite deeply, they can bring the fish up to the surface where they're accessible to other seabirds that can't dive as deep as penguins. And yeah, I think also so penguins, as we'll I'm sure get to, are in a bad way, and the reason that they are not doing so well is because of humans. So I kind of feel like we have a responsibility to try and fix that problem, and also we have a responsibility to make sure they continue to exist, because they are very special birds. They're the only penguin found on the African continent, so it'd be a huge shame if we were to lose them.
How many species of penguins are there?
Well, it depends who you ask and what kind of taxonomy you follow.
Okay.
But
I mean,
currently,
right.
BirdLife International recognizes 18 species.
18 of species.
Mm.
And obviously African or jackass penguins are near endemics here, but we do occasionally get Marconi penguins that visit, don't we?
Uh, and I don't know how often we've had macaroni penguins. We
Or
get
macaroni,
rockhopper.
sorry, I beg
Yeah,
your pardon. I
that's
don't know why I
fine.
call them Marconi. I think because their noise reminds me of radios, maybe, rather than than holy pasta.
Than pasta. Mm. Well, one of
So,
my colleagues called them spaghetti penguins because she
well,
couldn't remember
that's
the
much
name.
more appropriate, I think.
Um, we more commonly get rockhopper penguins
Okay.
getting lost and coming to our shores. We have had the occasional king penguin as well. So the closest colony for them is on Marion Island, which is also part of South Africa, but it's quite far away. And those
Yes.
penguins are very, very lost.
So I think you need a little drop of Chenin Blanc.
Yes, I agree.
I think it'll lubricate your vocal cords very well. I'm going to have a little
Yes,
drop too. I hope the rest of you have got a glass of wine in front of you.
yes.
So so this is what we usually do. I don't know whether you know, there was a very famous Irish comedian called Dave Allen.
Hmm.
Do you know of him? He was in it.
I know
He
of
was
the name, yeah.
he would have been your parents'. So he would always sit there with a glass of wine and tell these unbelievably blue jokes that on television, the sorts that you can't actually tell any longer. But I'm not going to
Ah,
tell any blue jokes. We're going to so we actually picked two wines to have a little look at during Christina's talk. I unfortunately, Christina's got both of them, but I've only got one of them. Which is a bit of a mystery, as I'm supposed to be a winemaker. But anyway, the first one that we have is some Chenin Blanc, and Chenin is a huge thing at Painted Wolf, and this is in our range of wines called the Den, which are comfort wines. And I'm actually very pleased to say that the lady who did the artwork, who is actually one of Southern Africa's greatest bird painters, is actually listening in on
ah, lovely.
on the talk. Her name is Jenny Metlerkamp, and she is an unbelievably wonderful bird painter. Anyway,
Hi, Jenny. Well done. Maybe I'll
but
show the bottle since I have
yeah,
it here so people
yeah,
can see them.
that's obviously not a bird.
Yes, yes, but
Although if you have enough glasses of Chenin, it might be.
yeah.
What do you think of this one? And let me give it
It's
a little bit
yeah. I was
of a
sipping
sniff and a
it
taste.
sneakily before before we started, but hmm, it's yeah, it's very easy drinking.
Mm.
Um,
It's very
and
lovely and soft, eh?
very soft. Yeah.
Yes. And
Uh,
and it's do you get some really sort of nice like tropical fruit
mm,
and some sort of peach and thing and stuff on the
yes,
on the and the
stone
aromatics
fruit.
of the wine, stone
Mm,
fruit, yeah. Mm.
mm,
It's a very pretty wine.
it
I hope
is.
one or two of you might have a little drop of Gentian in your glass, but if you don't, you'll just have to take our word for it. I know one of our people's in the Czech Republic, and he's drinking Ridgeback, which is actually a respectable thing to do as well, because Ridgeback is a also from the same region that we're from Paarl. So the
Yeah.
grapes for this are actually from a place called Voorperdeboek, which is on the big plain between here and the Swartland. And actually, interesting enough, there are occasionally secretary birds on that plain. I don't know. You must know that.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't know that, but
yeah,
that's very
it's
good to
it's
know.
yeah, it's a I don't know whether it's really the most outside part of their range or whether they're vagrants, but they definitely pitch up once in the blue moon. Yeah,
Hmm, that's
yeah.
great.
Yeah. Oh, somebody's posted a tasting note. There we are. That's very nice. Thank you. If anybody's looking in the column with the comments, Maria kindly posted a tasting note, so I don't have to tell you anything about the wine. You can read about it because we're far more interested in wanting to listen to what Christina has to say. So, Christina, what's the current status of African penguins?
So unfortunately, they are not doing very well. Recently, well, last year, in fact, a year ago, they were uplisted to critically endangered on the IUCN Red List. And so
Mm.
this basically means that they are one step closer to extinction and at risk of extinction. One study actually projected that they could potentially go extinct by 2035, which is
Yeah,
really scary 10 years from now, less than 10
it's
years from now.
it is really scary, and I think the thing that's also particularly problematic when you have marine birds or many bird species is that you can't create a Kruger Park to protect them.
Mm,
I mean,
yeah.
they're completely free ranging, and obviously I mean, there are maritime exclusion zones and such, but I mean, I guess you can put them in a zoo-like situation. You can make sure that technically they don't become extinct, but
Mm.
functionally in the wild they um they are. What sort of numbers of African penguins are there, do you think?
So I don't have the latest census results, but from last year, so in total, the global population is under 10,000 pairs.
Right.
Um, and in South Africa, so we have the bulk of the population. I think it's around 800, sorry, 8,000
Yes.
pairs. In Namibia, they have a few more, but their population crashed dramatically in the 1970s when the fish stocks collapsed,
Yes.
and they just haven't been able to recover.
Yes. Yes.
Whereas in South Africa, we've kind of our fish didn't get to such a bad state as they did in Namibia, and so the penguins were able to hang on. And yeah, and I'd just like to say that although 10,000 pairs sounds like a lot, um, it the reason that they were listed as critically endangered is the rate of decline, which has
Yes.
been over 80% decrease in the last 30 years.
Yes.
So it's basically
And
just
and
kind of in
and
free
and
fall.
and they're facing some very significant challenges that
Yeah, exactly.
are sort of there. And from my understanding, is that the challenges are sort of spiraling, and it's like a vortex that's getting steeper and steeper and steeper, and they're sort of spinning
Mm,
down towards the bottom. Would you like
yeah.
to sort of outline several of the major
Hmm.
threats that they face, please?
Yeah, sure. So um, historically, so just very briefly, historically, the main threats were egg collecting, so for human consumption, and then guano harvesting as well. So guano
Yes,
is basically
yes,
seabird feces, and that was collected and used as fertilizer before the advent of chemically synthesized fertilizers.
So why would guano collection be an issue? Just out of interest.
Because so there was this thick layer of guano that had built up over thousands of years on all of the seabird breeding islands, and the penguins would make burrows down into the guano, and that was provided protection from the elements for the eggs and chicks, and as well as protection from predators. And so then when that whole layer of guano was taken away, a lot of the penguins
they're
had
exposed.
to nest on the surface, and they're exposed to the weather and to predators
and
yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So that's what drove the big decrease from
yes.
in the like early 1900s, and even way before that, there were like millions of pairs.
Yes.
And these threats, egg collecting and guano harvesting, drove the initial population decrease. So by the 1950s, when they did the first official census, it was around 150,000 pairs.
Yes.
And so then in the 70s, the egg collecting and guano harvesting stopped. It was banned. And then the penguins were kind of doing okay, but then other threats came into play, and the main one currently is lack of food. So penguins eat sardine and anchovy, which are small schooling fish that are very important to the ecosystem along the coast of South Africa. And the distribution of those fish has shifted since about the mid-90s. I mean, it kind of moves around a lot, but the kind of center of gravity of the distribution shifted more onto the southern Cape Coast as opposed to the West Coast.
So what little I read and what little I understand is that there's a significant change in the way that the Augalis and Benguela currents are working, and there's more cold water coming up from the Antarctic as the polar ice cap melts, and that's changing the marine dynamic in a very significant way. And I think is that really the most fundamental thing that's going on?
Well, it's very hard to disentangle all the different things that are affecting the fish abundance and distribution, because they naturally go through these boom and bust cycles. Because they're very environmentally their abundance is very environmentally driven. But climate change isn't helping things. And then the other factor that comes into play is fishing. So the fishery for sardine and anchovy is the largest by landed volume of fish in South Africa. So they land the biggest tonnage of fish.
That's interesting. One would normally think it's I&J frozen hake.
That's what
you see everywhere.
That's the most valuable fishery, but the most tonnage of fish is the small pelagic. So sardine and anchovy together are called small pelagic fish. So that fishery catches the largest volume of them. And it's not necessarily.
Feed, is that correct?
Pardon?
She's mostly for chicken feed and animal feed.
Yes, so all of the anchovy that's caught is turned into fish meal and fish oil, and a lot of that goes to aquaculture feed and animal feed.
Okay, so all this wonderful and environmentally disastrous sushi that the whole world is completely and totally.
So like farmed salmon, that kind of thing.
I mean, sushi is such a step up for the environment, actually.
Yeah, well, not just sushi, but I think unsustainable seafood harvesting practices is definitely.
Yes. What about so your colleague Alistair mentioned something to me about underwater noise from bunkering ships. Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yes, so that's a relatively recent threat, and it's only kind of for now operating in Algoa Bay in near PE. So basically, bunkering refers to the transfer of fuel. So ship-to-ship bunkering is when it's basically a floating petrol station. So there's a big tanker that's kind of parked out in the harbor. Well, out of the harbor. The whole point is that the ships don't have to go into the harbor.
Yes.
And then another ship pulls up alongside, transfers the fuel, and then gets on its way. So it's the shipping companies like it because they don't have to pay the fees to go in and dock at the harbors, and it can happen much faster. But what has happened is that this practice has driven a massive increase in shipping traffic into Algoa Bay, because all these ships are coming to refuel, and that has caused a massive increase in the underwater noise from all the ship's engines. And then also there's issues with oil spills when they're
So,
transferring fuel.
so can you explain why underwater noise is an issue for penguins, please?
Yeah, so uh, we haven't been able to show the exact kind of causal mechanism behind, why. What I should have mentioned is as the noise has gone up, the penguin population in the bay has crashed. So St. Croix Island used to be the largest penguin colony. It was, I think, around 10,000 pairs in about 2012 or so.
Goodness,
And then
yes.
and now it's down to below 1,000 pairs.
Goodness.
Um, and so
I mean,
it's
that's a dramatic collapse. I mean,
it is it is
that's
a
an absolute
dramatic collapse.
stuff up. Yeah. Mhm.
Um, what we think happens what we think is that not all those penguins have necessarily died. They just avoid the noise. So it's been
Yes.
demonstrated before when there were seismic surveys happening, that the penguins stayed away from the huge noise of the seismic surveys. So they don't do well with noise and disturbance. And we think it might be because they need to communicate with each other when they're at sea. So penguins do call to each other at sea, and that's how they kind of coordinate their group foraging. And they're probably also listening underwater, for sounds of predators and sounds that might indicate where their prey are. So this huge increase in the noise will have disrupted their kind of hunting
Yes.
techniques.
Because there was some research being done by a French person um,
Yes, yeah.
about on that, but did they ever get to any conclusive outcome? Or
Um,
is it still really is it a bit like trying to research wild dog calls that you've got there's a lot of sophisticated things going on, but none of us are sophisticated enough to figure out what they are.
Kind of, yeah. So the research is ongoing, and
Yes.
they have documented calls of penguins at sea, but they're still trying to kind of work out what exactly they mean and why the penguins do it, and
So
how it all works.
is there like it? I mean, when you go to boulders and you're wandering around, they just sound as though they're making a silly noise. But I presume there must be like a range of vocalizations that and different things that they kind of say to one another under different circumstances.
Yes. Yeah. So there's not a huge range
Mhm.
that they do. So there's when they're on land, and there's two types of calls, but to me they sound quite similar. So the one is a sort of nest defense
Mhm.
call. So that's when there's a penguin. They've got there's a pair of penguins, and they've got their nest site, and they'll call to let other penguins know this is my spot, don't come near. And then
Is that quite a sort of strident
yeah, so
uh
that's the kind of typical
that
braying donkey like call.
that's the one that's the one that we hear when we go to
Yes,
boulders because a
to
great
boulders,
many
yeah,
of those penguins are actually sitting on nests and they're wanting to warn you away.
exactly. And then
Right.
they
Mhm.
also do what's called an ecstatic display call, and
Okay.
that's when the one of the pair has come back from sea, and then they're greeting each other and they kind of bow and lift their heads up and call and kind of reaffirm their pair bond.
They're a lot like wild dogs.
Oh, okay.
They all do that thing. It's just they don't muzzle run.
Well, they do kind of. It's called allo preening, so preen each other.
Right.
And then there's only one call that we know of that they make at sea, and that is just a very short little whack call. And we think that it's to say, "I'm over here. Is anyone around?" And then another penguin can come join them. Because they forage a lot more successfully when they're in groups.
A very long time ago, I had the pleasure of going on one of those deep sea fishing boat trips out of Hart Bay, and we went really, really far out. I mean, we went out to where the two currents meet, and I think it was about 14 nautical miles out of Hart Bay. But I was absolutely gobsmacked to see penguins bobbing about and in the ocean. I mean, it's flipping far when you're I mean, it's not, and they're not flying. I mean, they're swimming out there 72 kilometers offshore, whatever 40 miles is. I mean, it's far. And there you're sitting there, you're desperately looking for some poor miserable tuna to catch, and these penguins are rushing around and out there doing their stuff and catching fish. It's extraordinary.
Yeah, they're amazing. And because I mean, we see them when they're on land and they look all cute and waddly, and but then when they're at sea, they're these amazing streamlined.
They're like swift rockets in the water.
Yeah. That's where they're supposed to be. That's where they're kind of best adapted to.
Yes. So I've got your crib notes here. So I'm going to ask a question.
Good.
So we the major threats. Okay, so okay, the other little things that I wanted to just touch with you, and one's on your crib note and the other isn't. You mentioned disease, and the other thing I want you to just touch on is bee stings.
Oh yes, yeah. So yeah, disease is another threat that is kind of always there, and there's always the threat of an outbreak. And unfortunately, currently there is an outbreak of avian influenza.
Okay.
That is affecting.
That's bird flu, obviously.
Bird flu, yes.
Yes.
So bird flu seems to be, so there's low pathogenicity bird flu that's kind of always out there and probably doesn't have too much of an impact. And then there's high pathogenicity flu, which causes these massive problems. There was a really bad outbreak in Europe, and it went across to North America and down to South America and actually got to Antarctica.
How extraordinary! How on earth would a bird flu virus get to Antarctica?
Because
is that with migrants or with?
Yeah, so things like skuas that are scavengers and were feeding on dead birds and then flying off to Antarctica. So remember that the tip of South America is actually quite close to Antarctica. And yeah, so it kind of these waves of the various strains of viruses. I mean, think back to COVID when we had all these variants floating around. It's the same thing with.
There must be hundreds of variants of bird flu.
Yes, yeah. And so currently there is an outbreak in South Africa at the moment. It doesn't seem to be the same really bad strain that kind of went down South America. And it has been until recently only affecting heartlove gulls and a few tern species. But a couple of weeks ago, Sankob had their first confirmed case in a wild African penguin.
Oh dear, that's not very good at all.
No, not good at all.
That's
so
yeah.
But the one thing that I'm hopeful about is that it's kind of the end of the penguin breeding season now. So they're kind of starting to go out to sea again to fatten up after the breeding season. So hopefully they won't be hanging around the colonies and spreading.
Disperse, yeah. So Okay, so this is leading on to all kinds of other different questions. Got two other little questions.
Yes, but I must also get back to bee stings.
Now you've put the cat amongst the pigeons, or the man amongst the penguins.
Yes.
So the outbreak of rabies
Mm.
amongst seals in Hout Bay and presumably
Mhm.
other places.
Yes.
Has there been any recorded transmission of rabies to penguins?
Um, I'm not a disease specialist, but as
Okay.
far as I know, I don't think birds can get rabies.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I might be completely wrong on that, but I
Yes.
seem to remember someone telling me that.
Yes.
But yeah, so far there haven't been any impacts of
Okay.
rabies.
All right. Okay. Well, that's very
But
interesting.
seals themselves are a predator of penguins, and
Yes.
they can have a big impact at some colonies. And obviously, seal predation would have been, something that just happens naturally. But
Yes.
because the penguin population is so low and the seal population has been increasing after it recovered after sealing was stopped,
Yes.
it is becoming more of a problem at certain
Yes.
colonies.
Yeah. And obviously the demise of white sharks on the South African
Yes.
coast has
Yeah,
has a bearing on the seal population. Also,
exactly.
they predate on penguins too, of course.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
but seals is more important, and
Mm.
yeah. I mean, there's so many things going on. The dynamic
Yeah.
is just so
Yeah.
complex, and and sort of
Mm.
intertwined. Um,
Mm.
I forgot what my second question. I should have written it down, but I didn't. I was being so smart and so clever, and now I've forgotten what it is. Um, so
Well, shall
anyway,
I answer your question about the bee stings?
please do. Thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Yeah, so this is kind of something that we hadn't seen before. So a few years ago at Boulders, a swarm of bees went through the colony, and some penguins must have got in the way, or somehow interacted with the bees. And I think in that first kind of incident, about 60 penguins were killed. So they get
Yeah,
stung on
shush.
the kind of bare facial skin. And because they're so small, it just takes a few stings for them to die of I guess anaphylaxis. I'm not quite sure what the
Yes.
mechanism is.
And I mean, it would be something completely out of there. Although there's stinging
Yes,
creatures in the sea, of course,
yes.
but they're adapted
Mm.
to have protection against them.
Yeah. So this was kind of, at the time, it was just thought to be like a freak accident that had happened because a swarm went through. But since then, there have been a couple of other instances where they've found penguins that have died, and they can see the bee stings. And there's a whole debate in Simonstown, I think, around whether they are kind of managed bees, sort of people
Yes.
keeping
Yes.
beehives, or if they are wild bees that are just moving through. And unfortunately, the artificial nests that get put out for the penguins
Yes.
make
Are
really
perfect.
good
I've got
beehives.
beehives. Yeah, indeed.
Yes. So
My
you get a
word.
bee swarm moving into a penguin nest when there's a
Yeah.
penguin there.
It's the stuff
It's going to
yeah.
be
Yeah.
chaos. Yeah.
Yes. Mhm. Actually, I mean, we're going down to some little rabbit holes, but what about baboons and penguins?
Yeah, so this is something that was worrying me a lot when I saw that the baboons was in Simonstown were starting to
It's
move down.
extraordinary. It's absolutely
Yeah,
extraordinary. Yeah.
yeah. So they have, as far as I know, they have gone into boulders, and baboons would absolutely take a small chick and eggs
Uh,
if they could get them.
and an adult. I mean, baboons are actually ferocious predators.
They are, but penguins also have very pointy, sharp beaks, so they
Indeed.
would put up a fight, especially if they were in their burrow.
Yes.
Then they would be able to defend themselves a bit better. But yeah, if a determined baboon came across an adult out in the open, of course, baboons can run faster than penguins.
Yes.
Um, but
Perhaps this is a future crisis.
yes, but I'm hoping that the kind of management of the baboons will
Yes.
help take care of that issue. But of course, the penguins at boulders shouldn't really be there. Penguins should be on islands where there aren't these predators.
That's a very interesting thing, because I was communicating with my partner's parents, who and we were sadly they were unable to join us on the talk this evening. They're very bird loving, and that there were a couple of things that popped up, and one of them was about bird eggs bird eggs used to be shipped up by train up to the Northern Cape.
Oh,
and
wow.
they were like special treat penguin eggs.
Yes.
I know they were harvested in great numbers, and I mean that C. Louis Leopold. I don't know whether you know who he was. He was an Afrikaans poet and wrote a very masterful book about well, actually 3 masterful books, which are now collected into one, about the food and wine culture of the Cape around the turn of the 20th century. And I mean, there's lots of anecdotes and lots of historical things. They're very cool books, but there's lots of recipes, and there's several recipes for penguin eggs.
Okay.
But I understand they're very strong tasting, my partner's mother, who was on the farm, her parents would not allow the children to eat more than half of a penguin egg.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They're very sulfurous and sea tasting. Yes.
I wouldn't imagine they would taste very good.
but I mean, well, I mean, they were a food, and I think at a certain stage somewhat of a delicacy.
Yes, well, they were on the parliamentary menu.
Yes, so they clearly were a bit of a delicacy.
Yes. Oh, I mean, I don't like fish, so probably they taste quite fishy. So yeah. Not
and
that
the albumin is of them is unusual in that it doesn't actually
go white.
firm white. It stays gelatinous. And apparently, if you put a silver fork or a silver, it tarnishes it immediately. So penguin eggs oxidize silver. I mean, how about that?
That's something I didn't know.
So here we are. Here's some really nerdy facts. Let's stick to script, should we? Oops, I'll read. It's very. Am I too dark on the screen?
No, I can see you.
Okay,
yep.
All right. Well,
I think you're fine.
Okay, jolly good. All right. So you sent a question: what makes African penguins unique and important, and why should we care? I think we might have covered some of that, but maybe
we did cover that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Birdlife South Africa is an unbelievable organization. You are very blessed to work for such an organization. I think they're probably very blessed to have you too.
Thanks.
But can you tell me a little bit about some of the work that's been done with the Department of Environmental Affairs and with Barbara Creasy, and with the very unusual arrangement that's been whoops.
Yes.
Okay. We were supposed to stay clear of things that slightly dodge. But anyway, tell us about what's happening to help with the conservation of African penguins.
Yeah, so the kind of big good news, well, yeah, it's mostly good news that we had earlier this year was that we've managed to get fishing closures around the 6 biggest penguin colonies put in place. And this has been basically, since I started working at Birdlife, this has been a battle. In 2008, so even before I started at Birdlife, there was an experiment that was started to look at the impact of fishing around the penguin colonies on the penguins. Yes. And it went on forever. It was a very controversial topic because the fishing industry obviously didn't want to have areas restricted because they caught a lot of fish around the penguin colonies, and they didn't believe that it would stopping fishing there would actually help the penguins. So there was this. I won't take you through all
Well,
of the
I
processes.
mean, that seems like a flipping no-brainer. I mean, I mean, I think that's a serious smokescreen. But
Yeah. So the tricky thing is that the fish move around a lot. So the
yes,
argument was, you put this closure in place around the colony and the fish will just move through it. But the point is that you need to give the penguins the opportunity to catch the fish when they are there.
when they're there, yes,
And if they're having to compete with all these fishing vessels, they just can't.
and,
Um,
and they get caught up in nets, of course.
no, they don't
Oh,
actually,
really? That's very interesting.
because we think they actually stay away from as soon as they hear a vessel,
Because the
they
noise of
go
the
away.
engine, they don't
It's
like the
because of the
engine
engine.
noise.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Gill nets might be another issue. The ones that are just set in the water and then left, that
but
is an
that's
issue.
not the standard fishing technique in our oceans.
No, but apparently the illegal gill net fishery is on the up, which is quite worrying.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I imagine in the Eastern Cape,
yes, in a
a
lot of
huge
the
issue.
estuaries and river mouths, that is a
Yes,
big problem.
yes, yes,
But yeah, back to the fishing closures. So there were a whole lot of processes and a lot of fights and back and forth and arguments about the mathematical models that were used and the stats
yes,
that were used
yes.
to evaluate the experiment.
Mm.
And
And of
then,
course, sorry, Karen.
yeah, so in 2023, Barbara Creasy, who is the then Minister of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment,
Yes,
um, she uh, instigated an international review panel to basically look at all the evidence and give recommendations about what should be
yes,
done.
yes,
And so the panel did this and they looked at all sorts of things and they made all sorts of recommendations. But the bottom line was they said fishing closures are likely to benefit the penguins. It may be a small benefit, but it will be a benefit, and there are likely to be other benefits that we weren't able to measure during the
yes.
experiment.
So of
Um,
course, any marine reserve is
mhm,
is really good for for fish populations. Um,
yes,
and and although it's mostly pelagic fish that are being caught by penguins, I
mm,
think um,
yes,
it's I mean if if you don't have people dragging nets over the bottom of the ocean, you don't have all the other things that happen with fishing.
mm,
I mean the benefit is enormous.
exactly. Um, and the panel then also recommended a mechanism to look at the trade-offs between the size of the closure and the benefit to the penguins versus the cost to the fishery, because obviously there will be a cost. If you tell them they
Yes,
can't
yes,
fish
yes,
there, they'll have to travel further to find their fish somewhere else. So importantly, we weren't saying, we weren't reducing their catch total. It was just where they could
well,
catch that
yeah.
was being regulated.
Yes.
Um,
I guess one of the other things actually I mean, it was actually for Barbara Creasy from where she comes from and her from a whole setup. Actually, it was fairly brave politically because I mean, inshore fishing is mostly small scale and um, you know,
mm,
not subsistence fishermen, but it's not huge trawlers. It's a smaller scale fishermen, but they also obviously catch fish and create issues.
mm. Well, so the fishery that was being regulated is a commercial industrial scale fishery. So
Right. Mhm.
um, it's not it's definitely not subsistence. And yes, there are impacts to the actual fishers, the crew and the skippers who come from disadvantaged backgrounds. Um, but our argument was that the economic costs that had been presented were exaggerated and
Yes.
yeah,
They always are.
because the economists like to apply these multipliers that suddenly you're talking about millions and millions of rands.
Yes.
Um, So the panel recommended that this trade-off mechanism be put in place. And what Barbara Creasy did with those recommendations was she said, oh, the conservation sector and the fishing industry must go away and agree on closures,
Yeah, but how
which
can you
is
do that?
basically what we'd failed to
Yeah.
do for the previous
Yes.
15 years.
You need political leadership. You can't you're not, I mean, it's like David and Goliath trying to agree with we'd have a cup of coffee or something. Yeah.
And if we didn't agree, then they had these kind of hodgepodge of closures that they were going to put in place.
Yes.
And
yes.
so BirdLife South Africa and SANCOB, we took the very difficult decision to take the minister, so the office of the minister, not Barbara Creasy herself, but the office of the minister, to court for not implementing a rational decision.
Yes.
And yeah, so we were represented very ably by the Biodiversity Law Center, which is also an NGO that was formed for this kind of thing, to help environmental causes. And it was a very stressful process, and we learned a lot about the legal process.
Yes.
And eventually we actually came to a settlement agreement with the fishing industry. And by then it was a new minister, Minister Dion George, who'd come in because it was after the elections. And so the three parties kind of came to an agreement.
Yes.
And the closures that are now in place are more biologically meaningful than the ones that we had before. We had to compromise at certain colonies. So the closure around Dyer Island isn't great, and the one around Dussin could be better, but the other ones are pretty good, and we feel happier that they will just show a benefit. And so they'll be in place for 10 years, and there'll be a review process, and hopefully we'll be able to demonstrate that the penguins have done better.
Yeah, so obviously, I mean, that was going to be my next question. I mean, there's a monitoring process, and
yes, absolutely,
and you will be able to substantiate within 10 years that the benefit of the closure far outweighs the cost, and the other, and I'm quite certain that the benefit to fishery in the peripheral area around the closure will also, that there will be an increase in fish populations, and that actually the whole thing will be a very positive. And it's a pity that they didn't enact appropriate closures around Dar and Dassin as well. But anyway,
we'll have to see.
Indeed, yeah. So
if I can,
yes,
kind of plug my own project and talk
do.
about the work that I'm doing.
I'm so
No.
sorry. Excuse me. Yeah.
No. I just know that we're getting close to 8 o'clock. So I just wanted to make sure we get to it. I know we're not ending then, but so the work that I'm doing is basically trying to address the problem of the kind of shifting fish stocks that are now out of reach of the penguins that are on the West Coast, and to also kind of spread the risk between the different colonies, and that's to try and create new breeding colonies for penguins. And yeah, we started this quite a long time ago, and it was also quite controversial, and people weren't sure if it was the right thing to do. But I think now people have realized that with the population so low, we do need to do these kind of out there and drastic conservation interventions. So I mentioned that penguins should be breeding on islands because there are no predators there. And unfortunately, on the southern Cape Coast, there aren't any islands. So from Gansbaai, so Dyer Island, all the way to PE, there are no islands. There's a little seal island in Mossel Bay, but there's no kind of major islands that the penguins
Yes.
could colonize. Otherwise, they would already be there. And so what I'm doing is trying to create a mainland island by fencing it off from predators and getting the penguins to establish there. And yeah, so I've been working at the De Hoop Nature Reserve
Okay.
since about 2018, and trying to establish a colony there.
How's that going?
Yeah, it's so we've had some ups and downs, but overall, it's been actually more successful than we had initially thought. We didn't know if this was even going to be possible.
Yes.
So in 2018 we put in the predator-proof fence. It's quite a small headland that we're fencing off,
Yes.
and it's actually a site where the penguins tried to establish naturally in the early 2000s.
Interesting.
And then a caracal found them, and
I was just about to ask about that because
yeah,
a caracal is a ferocious creature for whom a penguin would be a very tasty treat.
yes, yeah, and unfortunately, caracals, like most predators, do this kind of surplus killing when they
Yes.
encounter
Yes.
prey that's naive. So, a leopard in a sheep kraal will kill all the sheep basically because they can't run away. They're not behaving in a way that the leopard kind of recognizes
Yes.
as
Yes.
normal prey behavior. So yeah, the caracal came in and was killing sort of 20 penguins in one
Yes.
go. And before the colony could be protected, the penguins had basically abandoned.
So
Yeah, so in
you need a very serious fence to keep a caracal out. Caracal is a
yes,
wonderful and incredible creature, but a devastating predator.
yes, and I mean there are also leopard in the nature reserve, and as I found out to the penguins' detriment, there are also honey
Jackals.
badgers.
A honey badger
Mm.
would be a devastating predator for a penguin.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that I'll get onto that just now. But yeah, we started work in 2018, and we actually put out penguin decoys, so model penguins,
Okay.
and we're playing penguin calls to kind of trick the
Okay.
penguins into thinking
Okay.
there was already a colony. So I actually brought a little prop.
Oh, look at
Um,
that guy.
so
Isn't he cute? Right.
this is one of the decoys.
Right. Okay.
Um, so I have a bunch of these that are sitting out
Mhm.
there. They're hollow, so they're not so heavy, but made of cement. And yeah, they're really amazing, lifelike models. Um, and so they're there to kind of trick the penguins into thinking there's already a colony there, because the penguins, like most seabirds, are colonial. They like to do things that no one likes to be the first to do
Yes.
something.
Yes.
Um, and
Unlike some of the
we,
colonials that came here.
yes.
Sorry, carry on. Let's stick to script.
Um, and then also in collaboration with Sankob. So obviously on this project, I'm working very, very closely with Cape Nature as well. They're a
Yes.
great partner because they manage
Yeah,
the reserve.
they're a fantastic organization.
They are,
They're
yeah.
really jacked up and do a great
Mm,
job.
yeah. And yeah, so with Sankob, we have been releasing hand-reared juvenile penguins. So
Interesting.
any egg or chick that gets abandoned in the other colonies, they get rescued and then hand-reared by Sankob. And then
Hmm.
when they're ready to fledge, so around 100 days old, when they would fledge naturally, they
Yes.
get released back into the wild.
So there's basically a penguin orphanage.
Yes, basically. Yeah.
That's in Cape Town, is it?
Yes, so Sankop has a facility in Tableview in Cape Town,
Yes.
and they also
Yes.
have another one in PE.
Okay.
Mm,
Interesting.
yeah.
And yeah, so, and penguins do they? I mean, I don't know why, but I've thought that they were a bit like swallows, and they always came back to their own nest.
Yes, that's true. Yes. So that's one of the things that we had to overcome when trying to start a new colony. So penguins generally go back to the colony where they were hatched when they're ready to breed, which is around between 4 and 6 years old. So they generally go back to where they hatched.
How old do they get if they start breeding at 4 to 6 years old? That's extraordinary. I mean, that's very old for a bird.
Yes, well, they can in captivity. I think the oldest penguin is around 27, 28 years.
Goodness gracious me.
Yeah. And in the wild, they probably live to about 10, 12, sort of their teens, probably.
So in a secure wild situation, a pair of penguins should be able to have 4 or 5 broods.
So they lay 2 eggs in one clutch, and if the conditions are good, they can raise both of those chicks. And if conditions are really good, they can actually lay a second clutch and raise another 2 chicks in the same breeding season.
Interesting.
So if they start breeding when they're 4 years old and they die when they're, say, 12, so that's 8 years, they should be able to raise 16 chicks or more.
Interesting.
Because they breed every year.
Obviously, there's predation on chicks in the ocean but it sounds like the interventions that you are working on give a reasonably good opportunity for enough chicks to be born to be able to create a sustainable penguin population. However, there's all these external things that you can't control.
Yes. Yeah. So the penguin, like if there was good food availability and we left the penguins alone, they would be able to recover. They can breed really quickly when conditions are good. So we just need to create those conditions for them.
Yes.
And that's what we're hoping to do at De Hoop.
So De Hoop sounds like a wonderful space. There's no ships.
There's no fishing.
There's no fishing because it's a marine reserve, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think there's even any. Is there some shore angling there? I'm not sure.
No, you're not allowed.
You're not allowed. I mean, there's the odd dodgy bugger ducking under a rock trying to fish.
Yeah. So we had our first penguins arrive in 2022, which was really exciting, and they were penguins that were attracted by the speaker and the decoys. And they bred that year and raised 2 chicks, one pair. And the next year there were 4 pairs, and they raised 6 chicks between them. And then unfortunately 2024 was the year of the honey badger. And so a honey badger got into the fence and it killed 11 penguins.
Oh my God.
And only ate one of them. But yeah, so that was kind of most of the breeding population. It was in March and the penguins were just coming back to start breeding. There was actually an egg that I found smashed after the aftermath of the honey badger. But still that year, 1 pair survived and they managed to raise 2 chicks. I obviously reinforced the fence as much as I could. Honey badgers they're the worst predator that I could have got.
It's a formidable flipping creature. It's an unbelievable creature.
So far, it hasn't come back.
So are you outwitting a honey badger? I knew you were a smart lady,
I don't want to
but
get too
you're seriously smart to do that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then this year so far we've had 2 breeding pairs, which is really exciting, and they've both raised 2 chicks.
Super. Well, and hopefully you can introduce additional young birds into the colony and actually help it's the Penguin Range Expansion Project.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Put it into wild dog context. And at Painted Wolf, it always needs to cycle back to wild dogs eventually.
Sure, absolutely.
Lovely. Well, there's a whole lot of questions that have been fielded, and I think Maria is the guardian of the questions. So perhaps she might like to okay, she wants to open up the chat. There's lots of different questions. I'm looking over here. There's a question from Ian about oil spills, and then there's a question from Terry asking whether shallow offshore platforms might be an option to create artificial islands.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll answer that one, and then I'll get onto the oil spill question. Yeah, so one of the things that we have been toying with is the idea of creating some kind of artificial island or platform or something for the penguins. Because any colony on the mainland is always going to need management. You're always going to need to maintain the fence and keep up with management. Obviously, on an artificial island, there's going to be some sort of management and maintenance required, but ideally that would be a good option. And so I did start looking into it. The short answer is it's going to be massively expensive to do.
Yes.
A decommissioned oil rig is something that I've kind of looked at, but the trick would be to try and figure out how to get the penguins up there. Obviously, they can't fly, so any kind of platform needs to be accessible to them, but also not get waves washed over.
And why would they go there?
Well, we'd have to make it attractive for them. We'd have to put down some kind of substrate so they could make burrows or put artificial nests or something. Yeah. So it is something that's kind of percolating there in the back of my mind, but I think it would be prohibitively expensive.
So Peter de Groot Hans de Groot, sorry, has a very interesting question. It's something that relates back to a previous speaker that we had. He's asked whether there are smells or substances that can be applied. So we had Peter Apps, who works for the Botswana Perennial Conservation Trust with his bio boundaries. So maybe this is a solution. Is actually creating bio boundaries to keep predators away from penguins. And maybe you should be talking to them.
I actually, when the honey badger incident happened, I actually had a phone call with Peter to get some advice from him. And we did discuss the smells. It is something I have been investigating. And it's a great concept. The one limitation is that honey badgers and a lot of predators are intelligent. And if you have the smell, but you don't, there's no consequence, that nothing happens. They don't see the predator, they don't get into a fight, they don't get
and honey badgers are so flipping cocky.
Exactly.
They're unbelievable. Yeah.
So you need to it needs to be constantly changed. So you'd need to constantly move the smells around and change the predator. And so the honey badgers may well get habituated to it and then not pay any attention.
And there's probably a knot in the hoop, although there are leopards, but they're few and far between. And honey badgers, and I mean, I'm assuming here because I don't really know, but my sense is that conflict between honey badgers and the hoop is something that's just so unusual. It would be, I mean, they would barely bump into one another.
I have camera traps around the colony, and I've been surprised and scared by the number of honey badgers. I don't know if it's the same one or multiple individuals, but there are quite a few of them around. But they wouldn't know.
But leopards a lot less.
Leopards a lot less, absolutely, But the honey badgers wouldn't necessarily, well, they wouldn't have come across lion. So lion scent might be a good deterrent.
Yes.
And I saw Hans also put in a suggestion around a noisy alarm or lights or something, and that is also an option that we're looking at.
Yes. Yeah. So
but
it's complicated things, but I mean, but maybe sticking to basics is actually and trying to put up a good fence and one dug down sufficiently deep so that although honey badger will dig quite sort of dig well, but yeah, it's very, very interesting. Is there anything else you'd like to cover? I mean, I think there's probably more questions.
I think there was a question around oil spills.
Yes.
I can't remember exactly what the question was, but that is another threat to penguins, and it's always a possibility given the amount of shipping traffic that we have along the coast.
I mean, it's staggering to go past Port Elizabeth.
Yes.
And see 30 ships out in the ocean. And obviously all the geopolitical things that are going on is making the route around the Cape more and more important, and somewhere along the road there's going to be another stuff up.
Exactly. And this year is actually the 25th anniversary of the Treasure oil spill, which was the big one in 2000. I think that's what
Ian might have been referring to.
I think that was what he was referring to. Yeah. So that was a ship that ran aground, I think, between Dawson Island and Robben Island.
Yes.
And I don't know, I can't remember how many liters of fuel it leaked into the sea, but it oiled, or it affected 20,000 penguins.
Goodness.
And that's more than the population is today.
Yes.
Which is scary. But it was the largest animal oil or wildlife rescue project in the world. It was incredible.
I mean, it's extraordinary that there's so many things that South Africans just stretch themselves and do unbelievably, incredibly well. And our resources are less than so many other countries, but yet we often step up to the plate and do
extraordinary things. Exactly. And Sankob is a world leader in seabird rehabilitation and oil cleanups. We are quite lucky because African penguins are very robust and they withstand oiling and being cleaned very well. A lot of other seabirds, like cormorants, even Cape gannets, they aren't as robust, and they don't survive being oiled even if they get cleaned. Whereas penguins have quite a good survival rate after they've been cleaned. So
Leanne has a question about the activity, the interaction between humans and penguins, and wondering if you have an idea or a view about that.
Yeah, so Boulders is a bit of a tricky case because the penguins only arrived in the 1980s, I think 1982. The penguins chose to colonize there by themselves. And of course, Simonstown had already been there for, hundreds of years, or I don't know when it was founded, but it's been there for a long time.
1700 and something.
Yeah, exactly. Hundreds of years. So people have been living there, and then suddenly they had these penguins arriving, and then they were told, oh no, you can't go on to Foxy Beach where you always used to go and swim, because now it's for the penguins. So I do have a bit of sympathy for the kind of longer term residents, and people who've been living there, since before the 80s. But at the same time, it's an amazing privilege to have
It's an unbelievable
a
privilege.
penguin on your doorstep.
I mean,
So
if you can't figure that out, you need to actually move. You can you can move to
exactly.
Torfadder.
Yes.
You can pack up your bucky and drive to Porfada.
Exactly. So yeah, there are all sorts of issues. Penguins crossing the roads and getting hit by cars,
Yes.
people's dogs getting free and
Mm.
running amok in the colony
That's
is
the
a
thing,
big
isn't it?
problem.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, so it's and I sympathize with sandparks because it's such, and also the city of Cape Town also manage, because some of the penguins now breed out of the official sandparks area and on city
Yes.
land. So
Yes.
sandparks and
Yes.
the city of Cape Town, I think do a great job in very difficult circumstances trying to keep that balance between keeping people happy and doing what's best for the penguins, and
I
it's
mean,
very tricky.
the economic benefit of penguins in
Oh,
boulders is
absolutely.
significant.
Yes.
It's part of the branding of Cape Town.
Exactly. It's
And
a big reason why people come here. I think, most of the tourists who come to Cape Town will go to Boulders.
yes,
It brings in a
yes.
huge amount of money.
It should not be understated. I mean, I think
Mhm.
it's I mean it's part of the branding of South Africa, not just of
Exactly.
Cape Town. I mean,
Exactly.
penguins are I mean the penguins in Boulders are arguably as important as elephants are in the Kruger Park. I
Exactly.
mean,
Yeah.
it's a you know they it's a kind of iconic it's an iconic feature that people associate with a visit to the Western Cape and
Mhm.
to Cape Town and to South Africa.
Absolutely.
And I mean I've heard of people who go to New Zealand and they go to look at penguins and the penguins are like 5 kilometers away and they need the strongest binoculars in the whole world to see them.
Yeah.
Um, and one can go to Boulders and to Simonstown and enjoy this absolutely incredible interaction with a sounds terrible. It sounds like elephant walking, which I despise and it's terrible.
Yes. No.
But I didn't mean it quite like that. I'm sorry.
Mm.
But yeah, but it's a very fine thing and although it shouldn't be like that, it is like that.
Mm.
Um, but I'm sure the work that you are doing will actually um, uh, provide and secure a lot more space for this wonderful
Mm.
and iconic little bird, large bird,
Yeah.
medium-sized
That's
bird.
the medium-sized bird. Yes.
Yeah, going back to Birdle, circling around to Birdle.
Yes.
Let me see if there's any other questions.
I see there was a question about Robben Island, about whether it's used by penguins.
Yes.
And yes, it is. So there was, historically, when Europeans arrived, there were penguins on Robben Island. Um, a few years after Europeans arrived, there were no longer penguins on Robben Island. They used to use them
I'm sure everybody that was interned
horrifically.
there ate them.
They ate them, they burned them, they used them to fire up the boilers
Oh
for
my
that they
God,
were using
how
for seal
extraordinary.
during their sealing practices.
What, to render seal blubber?
Yeah, yeah,
How extraordinary.
I
I'd
know.
never, I mean,
And
but
whale blubber, and yeah.
yes. I mean, yeah, I don't want to go down this conversation, but
Okay.
I can see, I mean, it's quite an oily little beast. I mean, I can see that it
Yes.
would burn. But
Yes.
but I mean, how brutal.
I
And I mean,
know. Barbaric.
this is not such a long time ago.
No,
In the annals of human history. These
exactly. Yeah.
these are our civilized forebearers of South Africa that did this, by the way.
Yes. Yes. Supposedly
Just to point there.
civilized. Yes.
Yeah.
Um, so Robben Island also used to have a seal population, given that it's called Robben Island. Um, so the penguins went extinct sometime in the 1700s, 1800s, but then they recolonized Robben Island by themselves, also in the 1980s. I can't remember the exact year, but they started up a colony there by themselves, and now it went up quite a lot. I think it got up to around 20,000 pairs at one point.
Yes, yes.
But now it's around 1,000 pairs as well. So it's one of the colonies that we were fighting for the protection around.
So Peter's also asked, Hans rather, sorry Hans, I keep saying Peter de Groot I went to school with. So I've got, when I see the word de Groot, I think of the name Peter. Sorry. Hans has asked about setting up a colony north of Cape Town, but I understand there's some issues with pelagic fish north of Cape Town.
Yeah. So the fish abundance on the west coast is not so good. So we haven't really been looking in that area, because we need an area. The primary consideration when choosing somewhere to start a colony is the fish availability.
So okay, well, I was going to ask you another question, but that's I think we need to wrap this up.
Well, I wanted to. I know you don't have the pinotage, but I have the pinotage sitting here. And
okay, why don't you? So I do have some pinotage. Let's talk about pinotage. I've got a different one, but you've got a really nice one. So I've got a fancier one, but I don't know whether it's any nicer. But okay, last thank you. Last but not least, you're bringing me to order. So as Painted Wolf is technically a wine company and not a conservation company, although I'm not really quite sure. So that wine that you've got in your glass is quite a special wine. So it's look how dark it is in color. And it's a
lovely color.
It's a 2024 Den Pinotage. And why I didn't have any in my glasses, because we've sold through it so quickly.
Well,
we've just bottled it is great. We've just bottled the very last tank of it. There's a little bit left. But it's also grapes primarily from Voorprenderberg, and Voorprenderberg is that plain between here and the Swartland, and it's actually from the foundation of that wine is from the very largest block of Pinotage in the whole universe.
Oh wow!
I don't even think they have one in Beetlejuice bigger, or somewhere out in the nether regions of the galaxy, getting the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah.
And it's a large 20-hectare block of Pinotage bush vines, north facing. And it's been supplemented actually with some Pinotage, a really fancy vineyard in Bredekloof up in the mountains, and then some Mourvedre. And Mourvedre is a drought-resistant grape variety. At Painted Wolf, we're interested in drought-resistant grapes as sort of a part of our whole kind of sustainability concept and thought. We're interested in trying to farm or trying to buy grapes from places that can farm without using irrigation.
That's very important.
Yeah, well, water is so short in the Cape, and
it is,
and with a burgeoning human population and I mean the same climate change that's changing the way that the oceans work and affecting the distribution of pelagic fish and all those things. It's very much top of our mind to try and promote farming in these places that are sustainable and so anyway, nice, rich, deep red Pinotage. And so anyway, cheers. It's been lovely to have you as my guest. It's been a very interesting and very fun talk. Thank you very much.
It's been great to chat to you, and thanks to everyone for all the questions.
Yes. So I think there's a lot more than that we didn't get to. And there's so many questions about wine and about all kinds of things. But Maria, who's in the background, actually making sure that we all behave properly, will collate some of the questions, and I'll do my best to get back to as many as you as possible in the next day or two, and answer questions that I'm able to answer. So
yeah, and I'm also happy to answer any questions we didn't get to.
yeah, so Leanne has asked about, so Leanne is a lady that runs very, very interesting tours in Cape Town, and I think she's wanting to come to Sandcob and bring her people to come and see some of the work that's being done there and stuff like that, which would be great. Lovely.
Sandcob does great tours, yeah.
It's a wonderful organization, something that more people coming to Cape Town should know about.
Yeah,
because it's much more important than going to a fancy wine estate. It's not as important as coming to Painted Wolf, of course, but
no.
Anyway, thank you. Have a lovely evening, and it's been such a pleasure. And thank you to all of our guests for listening in. And so I just have to tell you, our next talk. Sorry, can I do this, please?
Yes, absolutely.
Our next talk is a man called Manus Rotball, and he runs the Trans Limpopo Lion Project. And he is also a very interesting man, interesting person. And that will be in about 2 weeks' time, or 2.5 weeks' time. So I'd love you to listen to what Manus has to say as well, please, Christina.
Yeah, no, that sounds really interesting.
Right, so cool. All right, well, have a lovely evening, everybody, and cheers. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Jeremy and Maria, and to all the people listening. Thank you.
Night. Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers, bye.